In today's show, you'll hear investor perspectives on COVID-19's impact on the CPG sector. This is Investor Perspectives. I'm the host of Investor Connect, Hall T. Martin, where we connect startups and investors for funding. It's a time of COVID-19. The consumer product goods space is currently undergoing tremendous change across the U.S. The lockdown has disrupted the supply chain, manufacturing, and distribution. Retail is undergoing transformation as consumer products move online and the market shifts to functional benefits, prioritizing wellness. We have investors and startup founders describe the impact of COVID-19 on the consumer product goods market. Our guest today is Ronan McGovern of Point 5 Brewing. So what changes do you expect to see in the coming 12 months in this space?
Well, we can see, the emergence of more venture-backed companies. There's probably about 3, 4, maybe 5 that have done significant, call it Series A's at this point. So certainly, I think more entrants into the market. What I see is I see a higher price point level in the US than significantly higher, way higher than Europe, like mainland Europe, and even higher than Ireland and the UK. And I think that there's going to be strong downward pressure on prices over the next 12 months is a short timeline, but definitely over the next 24 months. And I think consumers are, they're going to be looking for more value on top of the quality in the non-alcoholic products that they buy.
I gotcha. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't about this space?
The amount of people that haven't tried non-alcoholic beer is still pretty big over here. So for your listeners, I just encourage them to try one out for themselves. The technology really has improved. And so the taste, certainly we take a lot of pride in how close we're able to get to original beer. And if your listeners are interested, they can get a discount by using the code CONNECT for $2.5 off on point5brewing.com.
Great. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you if they have any questions?
They can say hello by emailing hello@point5brewing.com. They can also catch me on Twitter. I'm at Ronan K. McGovern. That's for Killian, Ronan K. McGovern. Or they can find Point 5 Brewing handle on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Yeah, cheers, Hall.
Our guest is Paul Janowitz of Mantra Labs. That's very helpful. What else should we cover that we haven't?
In this day and age, I think we're talking about functional, and a lot of us think functional applies only to sports or physical, but mental health is top and forefront, both in the news, in the pandemic, stress, teaching from home. So as we think about what we put in our bodies, thinking about how it impacts our mental health as well has become super important, and it's a pillar of our company as well. We donate a portion of all sales to mental health organizations, and our goal is to really, from our marketing, the way we talk about health, talk about it holistically. So mind and body health. You kind of read that in our description at the beginning, that everything we do is made to support the mind and body. One without the other doesn't do us a whole lot of good. But too often, especially in the health and fitness culture, we forget that there is a mind, and an unhappy mind and a healthy body is still not a very good day. So focusing on just getting out, moving every day, eating as many whole foods as you possibly can, drinking plenty of water, and then, just being willing to be part of a community and help others is the healthiest thing you can do. After that, you can start thinking about supplements or buying our products. But first, go for a walk, smile at somebody, eat a vegetable, and do good that way.
Well, that's great advice. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can reach us through our Instagram, Go Mantra Labs, so at Go Mantra Labs or gomantralabs.com.
Great. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Our next guest is Sarah Foley of SWAT Equity Partners. That's a good point. So, on the functional beverage segment, what changes do you think we're going to see in the next 12 months?
Well, in this particular time, I do think there's been an even more heightened focus around wellness and calm and just anti-anxiety oriented products that help us all manage a very uncertain time. So I mentioned at the beginning that I do think cognitive functionality is a big and growing trend in beverage, and understanding the kind of ingredient set that is available to address ways in which you can get both taste and efficacy. Because remember, the product definitely has to taste good. That is table stakes. But do consumers actually feel calmer or less anxious or more focused after they've taken that energy or focus shot or a beverage that they can consume after a coffee, something that they feel is really effective and gives them the kind of feeling they're looking for.
Is that trend driven by the COVID pandemic, or is it a more general broad-based trend?
I think it's more broad-based because it was certainly around, I think, late 2018 and definitely all of last year. But I do think it's been accelerated over the course of 2020.
Well, good. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't about this segment?
E-commerce. I remember like 18 to 24 months ago, looking at the statistics of what kind of penetration e-commerce in food and beverage and kind of grocery shopping has had. And it was very small in the kind of single digits zone of the overall grocery market. This environment has certainly accelerated, and that has grown, one may even argue by an order of magnitude, as people are just focused on safety, as they should be, and contactless types of delivery. Whether that is an Amazon order direct from that beverage company's website or Thrive, or it is from a Walmart order that I can pick up and it's loaded into the back of the car. But it's still very contactless oriented. I just think more and more people are ordering their products via a website, and the demographic that has adopted that behavior has expanded and grown quite a bit on the older consumer side, somebody who's not grown up with an iPhone or an iPad or another device kind of attached to their hand for a long time. So I'm thrilled that that's the case. Kind of has opened up accessibility, and more people can shop, in the convenience of their homes. So I think that's a big one that's come out of something we haven't really talked a lot about, but a benefit to a lot of businesses that are getting started.
In your investing, do you overweight companies that have a strong e-commerce program versus those that don't?
I think I do. I think if they don't have an e-commerce strategy, they're now racing to catch up. And that does require investment on behalf of the brand. It's one thing to work with an e-tailer. It's a different thing to really design your own e-commerce site that may have been for educational purposes than for commerce, and to make sure it is constructed properly to get a consumer to click through as quickly as possible to deposit that item in their basket, and then move on to checkout. There have been some nice companies come up like Goldbelly who can help those businesses that don't necessarily have the e-commerce functionality available at their fingertips gain access to shipping product across the country. So that's great, but it typically is a bit more expensive because you're putting a couple more layers in the chain, if you will, between company and consumer. So yes, I think we definitely pay attention in the food and beverage sector to those who have an e-commerce functionality. If they're getting started now, and they still want to have a strong connection with their consumer.
I've noticed a new category of service companies, those that help you be more successful on Amazon. They know how the system works, they know how to promote, they know how to drive traffic, they know how to generate leads. And in some cases, they're actually doing fulfillment, but in many cases, they're not. They're just simply driving traffic. What's your take on those companies for CPG or functional beverage users?
I think they're excellent resources. Most of the time, they are former employees of that large e-tailer, in this case, Amazon in our example, that have kind of spun out on their own, and they're consulting with brands on how best to merchandise their products on Amazon for success, how to maximize the customer review process, which is a big, big part of, I think, the discovery benefit of the power of Amazon. So I encourage our brands when they're exploring, if they aren't yet on Amazon, how best to work with them, because they are the largest e-commerce company in the world. I mean, not in the world, but certainly in the US. And you've got to at least understand how to work with somebody like that. If you choose not to, you have your own reasons. But I think it's great that those types of services and expertise is being made available to more and more brands.
Well, great. Well, appreciate you joining us today and sharing this with us. How best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
They are welcome to contact me directly using my email address, which is Sarah, SARAH, at SWATEquityPartners.com. That's SWATEQUITY and partners, plural.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. Have a wonderful weekend and look forward to staying in touch.
You too. Our next guest is Richard Riccardi of Riccardi Ventures. What else should we cover that we haven't?
Well, And I don't want to sound so negative about beverages because we all drink them. And but I think there's a couple of headwinds, significant headwinds for beverage. And I think the first one for packaged beverages, I think the first one is environmental issues surrounding the use of natural resources and waste. So I mean, instead of opening your tap, you're buying bottled water or any sort of bottled beverage that acts as a substitute for water. That consumes glass or plastic or aluminum. And so that's a use of resources that people are uncomfortable with. Plus, then there's the waste. And we all know recycling rates are extremely poor. So while it seems nice that you throw that your plastic bottle into your recycle bin, most likely that's just going to the trash heap. I think even only 10% of the bottles are recycled. So I think there is great consumer awareness and sensitivity to the resources and waste around beverages. Not to mention, let me throw this on top of it, is the transportation cost. Think about the transportation of carting this water all over the country. And so that also leads to the next barrier. So we know that one of the emerging commercial or retail channels is online. Well, transporting water online or any sort of beverage online is extremely heavy, extremely expensive. And again, there's a great deal of sensitivity about not only the expense that might incur, but the resources used and all that transportation. Of course, again, I can't be, and I won't be entirely negative because for every issue, there's an opportunity. And I think there's a great opportunity in functional beverages for powders that can be mixed with waters or tablets that can be mixed with waters or perhaps Keurig type things that you're not shipping the water, but you can use. Of course, Keurigs and those cups are a little bit environmentally not too friendly, but it's certainly much more friendly than transporting a bunch of water. You know, I'm an avid cyclist, and so I use one of those products as a tablet that dissolves in water that hydrates me during long bike rides. So I think there's a great opportunity there, and maybe that will be the future of beverages. At the same time, while I say all this, the reality is we're drinking more packaged fluid beverages than we ever have. And so some of these concerns that I'm alluding to certainly have not come to fruition. But I think, from an overall perspective is clearly that any product today or many products today need to have a functional component in order to be successful. Not just I'm allergen free, but I'm doing something positive and good for you. So I think there's a place for functional beverages. And the question is how we'll deliver them and how will the market will respond to delivery of those things.
Right. Well, there's certainly a lot of challenges, but also quite a few are opportunities as well. And looking for good creatives to come and take that over and make that work. But how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
You can contact me on LinkedIn also. That will take certainly a longer period of time for me to respond to that. And I'm happy to hear from people if they've got investment opportunities or if they just want to discuss about the food and beverage CPG landscape. Obviously, because of the DFW CPG, I'm involved in a lot of that and enjoy having those conversations.
Great. Well, we'll put that in the show notes and want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hall, for having me. And thanks for all you do for the investment community. I think you provide a lot of valuable programming for us that I certainly subscribe to and enjoy watching.
I appreciate that. Well, thanks so much and appreciate all your feedback and support as well. And our next guest is Cisco Sacasa of Bee Cave Capital. Right. Well, so what changes do you expect to see in the coming 12 months?
Well, in the coming 12 months are going to be interesting because we're still dealing with COVID, right? We're still in a pandemic, and it'll be interesting to see how consumer behaviors, whether they stay like we're seeing now, where we're seeing very strong direct-to-consumer sales, very strong e-commerce, or whether consumers start going back to the store, right, and actually see retail come back. Particularly in the grocery space, there's been a massive shift in consumer behavior in that before you used to walk into the store, right? Sometimes many times a week, you might go buy lunch at a wholesale and at Whole Foods. You'll walk physically into the store. And as you walk into the store, you have an opportunity for seeing new brands and tasting new things. So particularly doing taste tests of new products. If you're a new company in CPG and you need to bring that to market, now the consumer is not even walking into the store. So how do you grab their attention? So many times now they're buying at curbside. They're going into the cart, just doing repeat purchase of what they'll be buying, doing curbside pickup, and they never walk into the store. They never get the opportunity to see new product introductions, and they definitely don't get the opportunity to taste test, your new product. So it's a real challenge for CPG companies on how to break through that. In the next 12 months, we believe we're going to see a shift back, that at some point we're going to come back to quote unquote normal. Consumers are going to come back to the grocery store. All those opportunities are going to start opening up again. DTC and e-commerce are here to stay. Those channels are not going away. They're going to continue to grow, and they're going to continue to outpace in-store purchases. But what we've seen over the last 9 months is abnormal, and that in-store promotions and in-store purchases will come back. And we fully expect that. Will it be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to 12 months? Nobody knows, but it will come back at some point.
What else should we cover that we haven't?
Well, we kind of touched a little bit on health and fitness. Things like, meatless and, vegetable-based proteins, low sugars, no sugars, and all the different types of diets, right? It's an ongoing trend that will continue. We don't invest in fads, right? Anything that's a fad, short-term, we don't invest in. But there's a difference between a fad and a trend, and you just never know which one it is. So you kind of have to guess of where the consumer taste going, and is that a long-term trend, or is that a blip, a short-term fad that's going to go by the wayside? We believe that the movement to healthy living, in continuing to move away from sugar, fats, and salts will continue. This will always be there, and there'll always be consumer needs in that space. But the growth of, the natural channel and the healthy alternatives, that's a long-term trend that it's not going to slow down. If anything, we think it's going to speed up. And that creates a tremendous opportunity for new CPG brands to continue to innovate and move into the space.
Seems like millennials are driving a lot of this new brand creation. They just don't want boomer brands. They want their own. How much do you think it is they want just healthy foods versus they want their own brands and have their own names and not grandpa's brands or whatever you might want to call it?
I don't know. I think it is about finding alternatives that are not available, right? So new needs in the marketplace that don't exist. There's something to be said about nostalgia, right? The various segments, they grew up on certain brands, and there's some nostalgia, right, of buying brands that you grew up with. So I don't know. It could be, but I think it's more about there's changes in consumer needs and consumer preferences that they're not enough for those new brands and products available. And that creates opportunity for innovation and new products to come out. And you're seeing the millennials particularly taking that opportunity, right? They're leaving their corporate jobs, quote unquote, and starting their own companies, starting their own brands, and really driving innovation in the space. And it's very exciting to see it.
Yeah, it's great to see all the new innovation going on in the space and the better foods that are coming out of it as well. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Both LinkedIn and email are probably the two best channels to reach me. And I'm always looking at expanding my network and meeting folks on LinkedIn. And then you have my email address for anyone that has, either a product or a company that's looking at funding and might be interested in talking to us. We'd love to see what it is and see how we can help.
Great. Well, we'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Yeah, I love that. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you for joining us today. As always, be sure to leave a review, subscribe to this podcast, and share it with others. Let's go start up something today. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.